Thanks, everybody. It's going to be pretty hard to follow that last one, don't you think? Yeah. I got some green jokes, but no, we're not going to use any of those. Okay. So anyway, I'm pleased to be here and to be part of the session here and to help moderate this brilliant panel we have of our next generation of talent in the industry. I do want to mention a couple things. So in my background, I've been in the industry 40 years now, but I was involved with SIA to help write a 12-step tutorial guide how to do that. So my wife and I did that, and we followed it up with another piece. So if you're a SIA member, this manual is available to you. At PSA, we've also had a very strong relationship with PSA and have taught a lot of classes on talent and acquisition of talent, and we're going to continue to do this next year. So let's get started on this, if I can figure out the technology. So most of my clients, when we talk about talent, and this is the number one topic I have with all of my clients in manufacturing, system integration, dealer, and even end user, is, Paul, we have a talent drain. And we don't really have a talent drain. We have a talent problem in that the talent that's been in place for many years is retiring. They're sunsetting and they're going off fishing. And we also have a very strong economy. So these two things, these two factors together really make looking for the right talent a difficult thing to do. So here's my one piece of advice I want you to take away. It's this right here. Always be recruiting, and I mean always. So most people will wait until they have a job opening or they get a project underway and they lose a project manager, and then it's a scramble for looking for talent. Now that can be disastrous. Number one, it's hard to find them in that short of order. Second of all, you'll take B players instead of A players. So always be looking in your world for talent, not for today, but for tomorrow, because they may not be ready for you today, and your company may not be ready for them today, but it may be in 12 months. So I'd strongly recommend you do that. So before I go any further, I want to make a strong award, if I can figure this out. There we go. So here's the award, the Jerry Maguire Award. This is like the biggest thing this year, 2019. Ray, would you stand up? And also Brad Wilson, are you here? Is Brad Wilson here? Brad's not here, so he can't get the award, but these were my two award winners for top talent agents in 2019. Because you know what? They recruit early. All right? So there's Ray's grandson carrying the wonderful name, and there's also Brad's. So there's our next generation, I'm going to guess. Good job. Okay, moving on. Let me introduce our panel to you. So my panel was selected for me, and I got to know them a little bit through the process, and I have to tell you, I'm very impressed with all of them, and I'm really looking forward to what they're going to share with you. So my job will be just to facilitate their knowledge and their responses to you. So right to my right here, we have Chris Wiggins from New Zealand. Yes?
Yes.
Secura Group is the name of the company he works with. And next to him, let's see, let me check this through. Yes, we have Michael Newsom, and he is with Butco. Then we have, of course, Chrissy McCutcheon, right to his right, and then finally we'll finish it up with Will, and then of course me. So let's get started right away because we're a little bit short on time and we want to provide plenty of time for question and answer. So as I said, talent, the questions around talent is who, what, where, when, why, and how. We're going to try to answer those for you today with our panel. So, first question that we're posing to our panelists is, how did you learn about the industry, the security consulting industry, career, and what attracted you into this career? I'm going to start right here to my right with Chris. Chris?
Yeah, sure. So, I guess I came into the industry, I've been working in the security industry probably about 5 years now. I actually came at it from an interesting angle because I wanted to be a network engineer, which is actually how Ray knows Scott, who I work for. So I kind of came into it from that IT network infrastructure space, not from a physical security space. I guess what I find really interesting about the security industry is that it's almost getting Ubered a little bit by IT, right? So what attracted me into it was there's all this new technology that's moving into the IT networking space from sort of a more analog area, right? Yep. So being able to be part of that and actually help the players that don't understand networking and IT and bringing them up to speed with that has been really interesting for me.
Excellent. Thanks. Michael?
Yeah, hey, how's it going? So can I get a show of hands here? Who fell into this industry just by coincidence or by circumstance? Okay, let the record show everybody's hands is raised here. So I did as well. It was my first or second year of college, and I was in a computer automated drafting class, AutoCAD. My professor came up to me. He says, "Hey, I have a job offer for you." I said, "Yeah, I'd love it," but he didn't tell me that it was his job I was going to be taking. So that's how I got into the industry with Ben. And so I started out as a draftsman, but I stayed in the industry, and over the last 5 years, I've become a security consultant doing design work.
Excellent. Chrissy?
So my parents started a company doing one of the first security consulting companies in the United States, one of the first 45 years ago. So I was definitely born into it. So like the new Wilsons and Colognes. And then I worked there for a couple years in high school and the beginning of college. And then I decided I wanted a total break and total change of direction. So I joined the Air Force Reserves and did that all through college. And then after college, I was working full-time there. I became a security manager. And then as that progressed, I ended up as a security analyst government contractor. I was designing SCIFs. I was managing personnel information, industrial, and physical security programs for 9 squadrons around the world with 1,200 people. So I realized that I'd kind of fallen into the security trap, even though that wasn't my intention originally. And that's when I decided to join Security by Design.
Good.
Excellent. Well, Carl, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
How you guys doing? So I graduated in 2010 with a degree in architecture, and if you guys remember that time, there wasn't a lot of job openings for somebody with no design experience. So I started drafting for a fire protection engineering firm, and most drafters tend to want to move up and out of that into a more design role. And leaving that company, I went to where I'm currently at Faith Group as kind of their production manager, and eventually moved into a design role, which is kind of a dual consulting role, and here we are.
Excellent. So as we can see from the panel, they come from a lot of different places into the industry, and like almost all of us here, and when I saw the raise of hands, was that we kind of fell into the world. In the new world of getting talent, it's about thinking ahead about your path of what this career path looks like getting into our industry. So in the past, it was always we'd be in the industry for a long period of time until we learned enough about technical stuff, and then we would kind of become security consultants. But that changed when technology changed very quickly. Back in the IP world and the IT world, things are moving so rapidly now. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I have a hard time keeping up with what's going on and how fast it's coming at me. So the younger generation can learn it faster. They're more adaptive to it. So make sure you put together a really interesting conversation for them if you want to bring them on board. So our next question. If you owned a security consulting firm, panel, the question is, and you wanted to attract new talent to grow your business, who would you be looking for? Who would you focus on? And let's start with you.
Sure, all right. So as Will Wilkins said in his keynote speech, project management is really a crucial part of the consulting business. And so if you're focusing on, you want to get really young people, like college level people, I would look for either business majors because they have that kind of experience, or computer information systems majors like myself, because that's really it's a nice mix of a technical background with networking and programming, and on the other side of the coin, you get that business experience too. I'm in my last semester at University of Houston, and I'm in my capstone class right now, and we're learning straight out of the PMBOK guide, which I think is kind of interesting, and it's a beautiful fit for this industry. So if you're looking for like college level candidates, that's where I would look.
Chris, you want to jump in on it? Thoughts?
So I also think that looking in colleges is a great idea. So you have people that are motivated and also willing to learn. But what I've seen is that security consultants come from a variety of backgrounds. I mean, in our office, we have people that have come from all sorts of different backgrounds. And so you're taking skills that they've learned in various different industries. We have one person that was prior SWAT, and I have military experience, but we also have people that did teaching and people that did fire systems and nurse calls and stuff. So you can get people from all sorts of different areas, and they bring in a different mindset. So it's more about looking at the people that are willing to learn new skills versus necessarily focusing on a specific career field that they're into.
That's a great insight. Carl, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree completely with what Chrissy was saying about all kinds of various different backgrounds. And what we personally do is we start at colleges. We have an intern program, and more often than not, we end up hiring directly once they graduate.
Great. Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess caveat for us and what we do in New Zealand, we don't really touch access control and fire. We're primarily CCTV across cities. So for me, yeah, it's looking at if you want to pull new people into the industry that you need that are already qualified in some form. If you're not wanting to teach them out of college, then it is your network engineers, your IT guys, even some sort of people that have like a software engineering background as well. We've got a guy working for us who's got a software engineering background, naturally a very curious person with technology, and that definitely helps him progress forward with sort of learning the part that he doesn't quite know yet and bringing experience into the role.
Makes great sense. Great advice. The only thing I'd add to that is just active learner. You can have a lot of different skill sets, but being an active learner, to me, has been the one thing that really separates people that are going to grow up in a career and acquire new skills and do it willingly and want to do it, and the ability to do problem solving. So when you're interviewing for this kind of talent, look for those kind of things about what have they learned lately? What interests them that they have really stepped into and worked on? The more they can tell you about different stuff that they're interested and passionate about, you're probably going to have a pretty good fit on the talent side. Okay, next question. Okay, so where? So the question is where? Where should we be looking for our next gen of security consultant talent these days? Are there specific areas to look at? Chrissy, what do you think?
So obviously a great source is literally the next generation. So a lot of us got into the industry that way, and we know what the demands of the industry are, so that definitely helps. But if you're not like Jim Henry, who's personally trying to repopulate the security industry, tell his wife cut him off. Then I think we really should be looking at colleges. So I met a girl at GSX. She was a student at GSX, and she's actually in a corporate security program. And in that corporate security program, they're teaching them CEPTED and all sorts of design principles and corporate liability, all sorts of things that relate to our job as security consultants. And she didn't know that the job of a security consultant existed. So I was explaining to her what our role is, and she got really excited because the next generation likes change. They like being valued. They like having new experiences all the time. And as a security consultant working for different companies, you get to experience a lot of different things and help a lot of different organizations. So it's not nearly as stagnant as getting yourself stuck in a corporate security job at one company. So I think that looking for those degree programs that teach corporate security is a great way to try to find those students that are be interested in this job.
Excellent. Great advice.
Yeah, I know you mentioned the college thing. That's kind of what we do. But one of the areas I think a lot of people aren't looking is within your own organizations. I know like myself and Mike, kind of promoted, through the same industry at the same company. I know when I'm working somewhere, I want to see a place to go, to move up to, something to strive for, and, in that way. So I think if you constantly bring in new people, you kind of create this gap of, a lot of senior level people come in. So there's always this kind of gap of like the younger, non-senior level designers and consultants, and there's just a big gap there that I always see. And from within seems to be the best way, at least in my experience, to fill that gap.
Great advice. Chris?
So just touching on Chrissy's point about people liking change, I guess, yeah, the younger generation are definitely people who like making a difference, right? So we do a lot of work with police and public safety in New Zealand, and the big attraction is that they're actually able to help make a difference, which is really cool for them. So yeah, I mean, I guess college is probably one of the most obvious sources. One of our guys who's been working for us 2-3 years now, he had no idea what a security consultant even was, right? And we pulled him in to start doing some drafting type stuff, and again, yeah, promoted up, and now we've got someone else doing that. So, like you say, it's kind of a mix of college and then also progressing them up through the organisation out of that.
Good. Michael, thoughts?
Yeah, so for this question, it really depends on whether you're looking for somebody who's looking for their first job or maybe their second or third job. If it's your first job, then yeah, obviously, like career fairs at universities is a good choice. Also, online is obviously huge. But I know my classmates specifically are not really going for like Monster and those kind of big ones. It's more specific to your locality. So there's a site called workintexas.com. Which is a more specific one that kind of will get you in with more local businesses. And then for like a second or third job, possibly look at either veterans or maybe former law enforcement because they have that experience with finding vulnerabilities in risk and ways to exploit that. So they have that kind of field experience that they can bring to the table.
Great advice. The only thing I'd add that, and it really touches on what Michael said, is military. So spent a little time the last couple of years looking at military as far as helping the talent in the security industry in general, but there are specific MOSs, which are military occupation specialties. And if you look in those with all the different forces, you've got force protection, you've got several people in several different MOSs that are very much designed about what we do. They're about how do we protect the forces, what physical assets do we put in place to protect them, and they can do this for several years. So they're a good place to look if you're specific about the MOS you want to look for. Okay, next question. So what are the right skill sets, personality traits, and work ethic to become a professional security consultant in your opinion? Carl, we're going to start with you.
I mean, as far as ethics go, I mean, we're going into those doors that say authorized personnel only, so I got to pass background checks all the time. So don't be a criminal. Somebody mentioned before, I think you did, Paul, actually, being an active learner and just always trying to, learn something new, I think is a big part of this industry because just in the few years I've been in it, things have changed quite a bit. So just being that active learner, I think, is one of the best assets any new hire can have.
Chris?
Yeah, as I touched on before, people who are naturally curious, especially with the ever-changing face of security and I guess the idea that lots of this is moving into the IT space. Someone who's naturally very curious and is a problem solver, I find is, second to none.
Great.
Yeah, I would argue that skill sets are actually not really that important. It might be a hot take, I don't know. But when you're interviewing a person, you should really focus on their attitude and, as Paul said, their willingness to learn. Are they a problem solver or are they an independent thinker? Because those are things that you can't really teach. You can teach technical skills, but you can't teach integrity, you can't buy integrity. So that kind of thing. I know when I was hired, I didn't know anything about security. I didn't know an electronic mortise lock from an electronic strike, but I learned that stuff along the way. So when you're interviewing, just be prepared to treat the individual as an investment that will grow into the consultant that you want to be.
So I think organization is key. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm typically working on a lot of projects at the same time, and you have to keep track of who the right contacts are and the schedule and the status of everything and be able to bounce between 3 different jobs in the same 10-minute period. So being able to be organized and on top of each of those things is really important. You also have to be respectfully firm with clients, integrators, manufacturers, architects, general contractors, everybody. So if something's going sideways, you need to be able to put your foot down and explain to people clearly why the direction they're headed is probably not the best path. Just like Will was saying, sometimes we have to be there to protect them from themselves because they don't understand the direction that they're going is going to cause problems. So you need to be able to be firm. And I've seen it in some clients where they'll just back down and accept something that's wrong, and it can lead to liability issues. So we need to be their advocate and be firm. And then I think the other big thing is that you have to be a mediator and a translator between all the different business units, whether that's just between the client security and IT people, or the general contractor or the architect, and really facilitate the communication because they don't speak the same language and they might not actually have a problem. They just don't understand what the other person's saying. And so it's causing problems and conflict when really everybody actually agrees and knows what the right plan is. They just don't know how to communicate that properly. So you have to be that intermediary to help them understand how to communicate properly so you can keep the job moving forward.
Excellent advice. Really good. What do you think? Good? Yeah. The only thing I'd add to it is, and I don't want to parrot it, but attitude, hiring for attitude is number one. Now, a lot of people talk about for your company culture or your style, and that's important. I'll grant you that. But attitude is everything. Because I hire for attitude, I'll train for skill. And I'll invest for skill, all right? You can't instill attitude. It's either there or it's not there. And people that think you can change somebody's attitude, good luck. Good luck on that one. I've never been successful. The Marine Corps is pretty good at it, but you wouldn't like their style. But the bottom line is attitude is very difficult to change. So look for the attitude right off the bat and some of the other things. And then finally, the communication piece, which I think is the second most important thing. How well do they communicate? How well do they carry themselves? Can they have escalator communication skills? So can they talk at this level here? Can they move up the escalator and speak well here and then get up to the top and speak as well? With confidence and with backbone. So those are really important keys for any security consultant. And here's the final piece on that is the younger generation or next generation communicate way differently than we do, us old guys. Anybody ever notice that? And everybody kind of gives them a bad rap on it, right? But I've been reinformed by my children why I'm completely wrong in this issue, which is usually the case. They said, Dad, this texting, we get information across faster, quicker. I said, but it's not personal. I can't, touch. I can't read. He said, we're trying to be efficient, Dad. We got a lot of things to do. So once they gave me that idea, I was kind of like, okay, I guess I'm the one who needs to adapt to this because that's their style. Okay, moving on to the next question. So when is the best time to recruit talent? Where did we leave off first?
Yeah, I can start. Yeah.
Yes.
I was thinking about this because we got the questions ahead of time, but I think that if you have somebody, promoting from within, again, I'm big on that, kind of in that 3 to 5 year of security specific, experience, I think that's kind of your good zone. And I kind of say that 5-year range is because anybody does something long enough, for a long enough time, it's really hard to break any bad habits they may have. And it's just easier to cultivate somebody brand new right out of college and kind of grow good habits as opposed to trying to break bad habits.
Excellent. Great advice. Chrissy?
So Paul, you touched on this at the beginning of this session, but really the best time is when you don't have a high demand. So when you hire a new person, you need to be able to take the time to properly train them and really dedicate the time to get them spun up. So like Judy was talking about earlier, sending people, jump in the water, it's time to sink or swim, doesn't work well for this industry because there's so many things, like Michael was talking about, not knowing the different types of hardware when you start. If you don't know the different types of hardware, that can lead to major issues. So you need to be able to do it when you have a slower time in your office. You can dedicate the time to properly onboard those people and really spin them up so that they're comfortable doing the job and you're not setting them up for failure.
Excellent advice.
Yeah, Paul, I think you covered this one really well. Just look when you're down and when you're not desperate. So the only thing I would add to that, if you're looking for like actual really specific times, especially for college level people, look around for summer graduates. Around March, not right at graduation, because by then they already have a job. So look a few months prior to graduation, March for summer, or like November, October, even for winter grads.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. One of the quotes of a good friend of ours that I always remember is that the right person will always come at the wrong time, right? And so
That's really good.
So
I'm going to steal that, Chris.
Yeah. So with that, right, it's like if someone comes along and you are predicting future growth at some point, if you can afford to hire them, do it, because people in this industry are hard to find, right? So if someone comes along and they fit the role well, or you think you can use them for something else, even in the meantime, go for it.
Excellent, great advice. The win is, from my perspective, is all the time, right? And all your employees, because when we're out there working, I see talent all the time as well as you do. You can see it. It's hard to describe it, but when you see it, you know it. Is that a fair statement? When the way somebody's acting with a customer, I don't care if they're technical, got a tool belt on, or whatever. When I see it, I understand and I can recognize it. Whenever that bell goes off in my head, I want to know who they are. And I'll give you an example. So I was at Home Depot, which is my second home whenever I'm doing a project, right? And so I'm sitting there waiting for this paint person to take care of it. And so a very astute young lady, she's really doing great customer care and conversation with this customer who was having challenges. And I'm just listening to her and I'm saying, wow, this person is really good. And so when I got to her and I got my paint, I said, so what do you do besides this? She goes, I'm going to graduate from school. I said, here's my card. I said, when you get done with that, come on, I'll give you an intern in the security consulting business. She was just right on target. So keep your eyes open. And I hate to say poaching, but you know what? System integrators got good technicians, really bright technicians that communicate really well, right? Keep your eyes on those people, because those are perfect people to start to draft in. And I don't mean immediately, but start to build a relationship, because the time will come where they hit the ceiling and you'll need the bandwidth to hire them. Okay, next question up. So how important is onboarding process for new security consultants to keep them engaged? Chris, let's start with you.
Oh, with me? Okay, cool. So pretty important, right? There's a sort of a water flow of information, right? Waterfall of information coming thrown at you. So a little bit like on Chrissy's point, you don't want to be in that point. You don't want to feel like you're sinking or swimming because you've been hired into this place. So really important to get them engaged, and working on what's worked well for us is having someone almost sideline someone else for a while. So you're not expecting them to produce any output to really be all that functional, but they're there beside someone and learning and getting involved in some cool projects. We find that's really important and really keeps people engaged for sure.
Excellent. Michael?
Yeah, I would say it's crucial, honestly, probably one of the most important parts. And one of the keys to that is having good leadership to bring you through that onboarding process. Not only to learn the business process of getting projects out, but also to learn about the company culture. Is this a type of place where you're allowed to ask questions? If you ask a lot of questions, are you going to get backlash for not knowing stuff? Are you allowed to take risks? That sort of thing is really important to become part of the company.
So I totally agree on the company culture factor, and I think that establishing a culture of appreciating every member of your team, regardless of what role they're playing, is really important. And so when you onboard a new person, they're going to see that you appreciate every single person, and it's all a team, and we can't do the job without every single member. And then on top of that, like Chris was talking about, he does a lot of public safety type stuff. So, in the military and public safety, you really understand how much your role matters, and you have pride in that job. So you need to make sure that the new people are understanding the role that we play in protecting people in the critical infrastructure or corporate security or wherever you're working, how much of an impact what we do does to protect all the different people around. And so then they'll feel like they're their job is important, and they will feel valued, and you'll be more likely to be able to keep them engaged and interested in the job.
No, onboarding, at least for me, has always been very hard because Project A isn't necessarily the same as Project B. There's somebody touched earlier about the variety of this industry. So it's really hard to bring somebody on board and say, this is how we do this, and that's how you always do it. And kind of on those lines is you mentioned the culture, and I think really a culture of peer review really needs to be out there. So you can't be afraid to make a mistake. I know I've learned a ton from making mistakes. I've invented new mistakes. And yeah, I just think it's a very good culture of knowing, well, can I try this? Yes, that will work. No, that won't. But here's why that won't work.
Excellent. Onboarding is, I have to tell you, is one of the biggest elements that most employers miss. And onboarding is like, here's the front door, here's your button, here's a flashlight, and good luck, get on with it.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I got news for you. If you start a new employee off, especially in a new career area, and you leave them blind like this, every day after that will become more negative for lots of reasons, right? And that starts happening, you will lose their will, their desire to be part of your team and be part of your culture. And say, here's access control, and here's cameras, and we take it a month at a time, right? And after the training's done and they're introduced to it, then you test for competence, right? It's one thing to go through training, it's another thing is putting a problem in front of them a month later and say, how would you solve this access control problem? How would you design it? What would be the challenges? You got to check for competence to make sure it sticks. Otherwise, you might not have trained them correctly, right? So take your time with that. Onboarding is so important. It's incredible. The other part I would say is this, it's a great recruitment tool. If you have a pretty well delineated onboarding process that's laid out pretty well, this becomes very attractive to the next generation. If they can see what's going to happen here, 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever that looks like, that you become much more attractive to them. Forget about dollars. They're looking about learning and building a career. So think really strongly about how you develop that and how you work on that, because that's really important. Next question. So, what were the key experience, education, and other career growth opportunities that really helped you stay committed to your career, your young careers so far in the consulting world? And I'm going to open this one. Who'd like to go first?
You guys keep looking at me, all right.
I'll take this one. So I think this has been covered a little bit. For me, it's the variety of work that we do. Every project is different. Every industry is different. Every vertical is different, and that really opens you up to meet a lot of different people. And for me, travel a lot of different places is also a benefit. You get to see just a lot of different things. And besides that, getting experience in different fields of work. So, we're all security consultants, but you have to have knowledge in networking. You have to have knowledge in electrical, indoor hardware, architecture, all of these things that if I was, in another job, you might not be able to get. So it really rounds it all together and becomes a nice package.
So I totally agree on the traveling. That definitely helps. Going to all sorts of different places. I even got to go to Paris this year. So, but beyond that, being able to work with people from all over the world and understanding the different complexities of doing a job in Sydney versus Singapore versus Paris, every place has their own unique characteristics, and dealing with the different people there is really interesting and keeps the job exciting. And then also getting certified on manufacturers' products and learning about the new products is interesting because it really helps me increase my bandwidth to help my clients better. And so I feel like I can better serve them when I know more stuff. And so it keeps me interested in learning.
Keeping on with the learning thing, I know it says up there, was it educational and career growth opportunities? And I know we have such a variety of people here that there's really no, bachelor's degree specific to this, and if there is, it's fairly recent. But I really like the industry certifications, like your AS's PSP, or like a BICSI RCDD, or even the ESS, if that ever comes back. But that definitely helps, because you can basically get credentials that kind of have that value of almost like a college degree, just industry specific though. And I know that really helps somebody like me who just doesn't like school.
I think for me, just touching on your point before, Paul, what this sort of younger generation, I guess I probably am myself, right? We're less driven by dollars, right? So I guess what's kept me in the public safety arena is the fact that I get to go and see police and actually watch them arrest people through CCTV we've put in, right? And that is just, I think when you experience that, you kind of go, wow, actually I've helped save a life or something. And that's really what's kept me in it. Second to that, obviously, is all the new technology that's coming out all the time. It's getting faster. You're always learning new stuff. You're always hitting new problems, and really enjoying that is a big part of it.
Excellent. Great input. The only thing I'd add to that is that as part of your onboarding, make sure you consider career pathing. So when you do your reviews with your newer talent, set out aggressive goals. I mean, if it's PSP, if it's any other type of certification that they're interested in, put it in their goals. Put in their goals to go after it and pay for it, right? And measure them on it, because there's nothing better than to help your crew grow their career path by challenging them. And I'd like you to have a PSP in the next 12 months. Start working.
So just to add to that, right, being taught and having programs paid for by your company makes you a much more loyal staff member too. We find that our guys really love working for us because we're providing all this education and opportunities to do stuff that they want to be doing themselves, which means that they're going to stay with us longer, which means they're going to stay in the industry longer. So definitely paying for programs is helpful.
Yep. Guys, thoughts on that?
Yeah, not to add that, but I do have a different thought. Just being flexible with your employees. I know for me personally, I'm going to school and working, so I kind of work weird hours, but Ben's been very flexible with that. So think about your employees are people too, and they have other responsibilities, so just be conscientious of them.
In terms of the ongoing training, I saw a quote that said, the CTO says, what happens if we train people and they leave? And the CEO says, what happens if we don't and they stay?
I like that even better. That's beautiful. Yeah. That was one other quote I heard was, train them so they can leave, but your culture will make them want to stay. That sounds like woo, but that's the truth, along with your statement. Is the more faith you give them, the more loyalty typically they'll come back, with one exception. And this, once they come up in their training, expand their responsibilities and your expectations. You can't have them train up and then just leave them in the same spot. You have to take them to the next project and push them and say, okay, you got that education, you're going to take on this project here. I've never done that one. Well, you've got training, right? Let's put it to use right now. This has always been one of my big bugaboos. You train people for projects and then they never install this big project for a year. So they got a certification from a manufacturer and they never put their hands on it. And I always tell my clients, I said, look, don't send them to training until 1 month before the installation starts. Because there's nothing better for a technician, right, than to know that I'm sitting in this class and in 2 weeks I'm going to be sitting there and commissioning one of these things in a customer site. Okay, for our last one, this is kind of the magic show. So we're going to wave the magic wand here across our panelists, and we're going to give them the ability to do whatever it is they want or what they think about. So if you were to have, and you were promoted to the HR talent director of your big security consulting company, what would you do? What are your 3 primary things you would just start with and get after?
So I think the first thing I would do is actually create marketing material that explains what our job does, because I've never met a person that's not in the industry that has any clue that security consulting even exists. Every kid knows that you can be a policeman or a firefighter or something else, but nobody's ever like, when I grow up, I want to be a security consultant. Nobody ever said that. So we need to be able to explain to them the benefits of the career, because there are a lot of benefits, and make that enticing to young people so they can understand, and then go to college career fairs or do recruiting at schools so that they can understand that the job even exists. And then, like I said, so go to career fairs would be the number 2 step, and then reaching out to military or law enforcement, people that have an interest in security, so it's a little bit more of a targeted market and easier to find people that way.
Great advice. Chris, what are your thoughts?
So I guess, we've talked heavily about graduate programs in universities and the like, and we also talked about who we'd promote potentially internally. For me, I'd just start looking at the IT sector, right? I mean, rightly or wrongly, I think the security industry is becoming more and more and more a subset of IT, right? It's where I see it. I see CCTV device as a networking point, right? Cool, okay, it's an IT device. So what I would do is look at that industry and actually, to Chrissy's point, educate people that are in that space that it's not a completely different career path. It's the same stuff applied differently.
Point. Michael?
Yeah, so to add on to Chrissy was saying, marketing, that's really the key. Marketing. You have to market your company as a positive place to work, really highlight what makes your company great, and really redefining what it means to be a security consultant. As Chrissy said, people just don't know. And even, I don't know about you guys, we have problems communicating with our own clients what our value, what kind of value we bring to the table in terms of what we can offer. So if we can't convince our own clients why we're valuable, how are we going to convince potential candidates, to come work for us?
Yeah, back to the marketing thing, I think that's a really good strategy is, let people know that this is a kind of a very niche and kind of, we go to some very cool buildings, some cool other places. We did a whole bunch of cruise ships. Not many people do that. But yeah, you could definitely market the industry as a whole. But also we were talking just kind of evaluate your existing staff. If there's some people there that are very talented but maybe not being used correctly, maybe they want to move up or try a different role.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah, so the old Marine Corps rule is this, is that if you're going to get your ticket punched in the Marine Corps as you're coming up, you're going to go on recruiting duty. All right, and that's just the bottom line to it. So you're never going to really advance the Marine Corps unless you go do a recruiting tour. And guess who they choose as their best recruiters? Their best Marines, right? The ones that look like on a poster. These are the people they put out in front of the public to influence it. The marketing, as Chrissy said, is these people they're spit and polish, right? They're very impressive individuals, right? They put them in front of a college, class or a high school class or whatever. I mean, you're never gonna have to worry because they represent the brand really well. So think in terms of that in your company, right? So you've got some very good talent. You've got good people that work. Think in those terms. Everybody in your company should be recruiting. They should be the example of hiring good talent. They should keep their eyes open and understand that they're not just a designer or a CAD person or a project manager. They are also a recruiter, right? Because they will bring you and they will spot talent, but they don't think it's their job. They think you own the company, it's your business. What? Make it part of your culture to enable your people that work for you to point out talent to you so you can pursue it. And companies that are full of talent attract better talent. It's really that simple. Okay. With that, I want to leave some time for some question and answer, which I thought there would be a bit of, especially with this young talent sitting up here. So I'm going to open it up. All you have to do is raise your hand and ask one of our panelists any question you'd like. Questions? In the back.
I just made it to farthest with what the microphone was.
Yes. Julie, you get your exercise.
Yeah, exactly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So my question to the panel, and really looking forward to the answer. So our challenge that we're having is maybe not in identifying where that talent is, but being able to afford them. And I know it's not always a cash transaction, but they're young people coming out of college that want to make what my senior guy's making. And so what's the strategy on that?
So I guess that probably, if I'll jump on this one first, ties into that whole, the whole, it's not always all about the money, right? So, can you make it appear as if, or show that what you are actually doing is making a difference, right? Yes, people will always be driven by money, but I think less and less so, especially down in Asia Pac. What we're seeing is that, the money doesn't matter as much anymore, right? It's the lifestyle, it's the flexibility. Can you offer that as a way to afford them more than a monetary value? Okay.
So I totally agree. The people I've talked to, money is not the top priority. It's career progression that's their goal. So if you can show them, like Paul said, have a roadmap laid out for them for their training so that they can understand if they're with you, they're going to progress, they're going to get more skills, and that can often be more valuable than a higher salary.
Yeah, just to add on to that. So money definitely isn't everything, but it is something, It's a lot, especially when you're on paper. Ideologically, yes, we all want to make the world a better place. We all want to feel good in what we do. But when you're out searching, it's the numbers that come up first. So that's just a reality. Some of my classmates are applying for, Exxon, NOV, these kind of places that just can't be matched. But you have to work with the talent that you attract, really.
Yeah, I would just kind of to follow up with that is, the gap is already there, so I'm going to be the oddball out here and say you will have to pay to fill that gap. That's just my take on it.
Yep, if I could just chime in. So this is a tough question, right? But there's two things I'll say. So we just designed a program for one of our clients that did this. They were having trouble with their technicians and some of their salespeople that, this guy's been around this much and making this much money, I should be making that much, right? So we just layered it out based on the onboarding and training. If you have more skills, that can improve my business because I can put you in different places and just move you around the chessboard. You're more valuable to me as an employee, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. So here's the road mapping and the training. Like the military people understand to get the next stripe on their arm, they have to be more competent in something else, right? So they got to go to another school. They don't just get stripes on their arms because of the time that they're in the military. They do it by how they're competent they are and how valuable they are to the military. So if the conversation is all about money, probably start off in the wrong direction to begin with. If they're more interested in money than their career and other things, you're going to have a problem right from the start, I would tell you.
You're also most likely going to not keep them very long because they're just after the money, and so they're going to find the next opportunity. If you can make them feel valued and train them, they're more likely to stay for the long haul.
Yep. Yes.
So Charlie's question inspired mine, which is kind of an inverse of his question. Have you seen your generation and younger generations see any negatives about being a security consultant? Not talking about are they aware, do they know what it is, but for those who become familiar with the role of a security consultant, have they seen any barriers to that's not something I want to do because of X?
For us, politics is probably a large part of it. All the people you have to convince can sometimes be a bit of a pain and a very painful process. Like I say, we deal with a lot of local government, and that can be a real nightmare sometimes. So that's definitely a detractor.
I haven't really come across anything specific of, I don't want to get into this field because of, like you said, X. I'm drawing a complete blank there.
So I did talk to one person that said they didn't want to be in this industry because the time requirement. They know that you could be working nights, or you could be working weekends, or you could be, it's going to happen, and they wanted to be able to do that, 8 to 5 job, and that's it. They don't want to have to work extra hours. So it definitely takes the right kind of person, and there are people that are not interested in non-hourly 8 to 5 work. So
That's a good point. Yes.
Yeah, to your point about what are the first things you should do when you want to become a security consultant or have a firm, I think the first thing you should do is develop a business plan. And the business plan would include, trying to figure it out what is it you want to do, what is it you can do, and where you want to go from here, and what you want to get paid. And that includes the next step, which is then marketing. So I think marketing is important, but you got to have a plan first. And I would suggest to everyone that's in this state that they in this position that they go to the Small Business Administration, and they've got a mentoring program and a small business startup kind of thing that is really good. And so develop a business plan is my first, and that's kind of standard business.
I'll touch back. I think I couldn't agree with you more. A good business plan for any business is your roadmap for success and for attracting people. Without one, here's what's going to happen. In our industry, you're going to go project to project. There's going to be these big elephants that come in and they take up everybody's time and suck all the oxygen out of the room, and then you don't have time to go sell the next project, and you get this thing going on that looks like this, right? But when you're carrying fixed overhead, like this great talent over here, that's not a really good business plan, right? Because now you're carrying loads that you don't have revenue to offset against. So having a good business plan and knowing how you're going to market and how you're going to work and how you're going to continually drive revenue into your consulting business, you got to take the time to do that. Any other questions?
Question for you. What have you guys brought to your companies that might be sort of new innovations? Maybe expanding the use of social media in your companies or things like that. I'd be curious of what have, you guys are learning a lot, but what have you brought to your companies that you're teaching your companies?
So I do a lot of 3D modeling and, fully walkthrough renders of it, put somebody in a building before it's even built, and, security specific. I can show you what a camera's going to see before the camera's mounted in the building that's not there yet. And we weren't doing that, 4 or 5 years ago. So there's a lot of other stuff going on with, the 3D rendering and everything, but, teaching the younger guys that, I've brought on since then to kind of do the same thing and how to do that, how to use the more of like drafting or engineering tools specific to a very specific problem in security, which is, verifying your pixels on target at a distance.
I think for me, it's way more of working remotely and proving that that's a viable opportunity with web meetings and being able to share screens, and you can really collaborate better than you used to be able to.
I guess for me, bit of a broken record, right? But the IT background, we offer a lot of, I guess we've moved from a consulting space into sort of an integrator space a little bit, in the sense that we now offer some monitoring tools and all that sort of stuff that we didn't previously have. In addition to that, I think being younger, we love to try things and find out that they're wrong, right? We're not cynical. Scotty, who we work for, is always, I'm cynical, that's not going to work, right? And we go, I don't care, we're young, we're going to give it a go, right? So I guess it's that constant belief, being hungry, and I want to try this, I want to try this, I want to try this. Often you find that actually something you try that you thought might not work actually does.
Yeah, and just to add on to what everybody said, we're a pretty small company, 3 of us in total. So I'm in a similar position to Will, where I've started as a drafter, so I've kind of reinvented the way we do the drawings, brought in new blocks for things and the way we put out drawings. But also just ask a lot of questions. Question everything that we do. Like, why are we using this template? Can we use it a different way? Why are we using this process on this project? Can we do it a different way? And always get feedback from the integrators that we're working with, and ask questions to the clients that we're working with.
Great insight, guys. We're running out of time. I want to thank our panelists. A hand for our panelists for doing a great job and working with us and sharing their ideas. Thank you. And then I want to give one shout out because I didn't tell you how I got in the security consulting business. So it was really Mr. Ed Chandler and his wife, as I call him, Mr. Wizard affectionately. I tried to sell him like Centriscan when I worked for ADT back in the 80s. He kept throwing me out of his office, but it eventually sunk in. I want to do what this guy does. So after my career at ADT, I went into security consulting. So thank you, Ed. Thank you, Laura. And great having your daughter up here with us. So.